Now, the speed advantage that Usyk normally enjoys over the rest of the division won't be as wide against Joseph Parker. And Parker's a smaller heavyweight, whereas AJ, Fury, Chisora were all either in stature or dimensions bigger than Usyk. Parker will be a very similar size, and he's in his prime. Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, their most formidable periods of their career were already behind them by the time they fought against Usyk. And in the case of AJ, if you look at how he's performed after the Usyk series, it would suggest that his best days are behind him. Now, with Tyson Fury, we're yet to see, because Fury hasn't fought since. But if you look at Fury in those two fights and the speed difference and elusiveness difference between when he fought Klitschko and Usyk, there was a gap between them. And that would suggest, particularly after everything Fury's put his body through, that Usyk faced a version of Tyson Fury that wasn't the same guy pre-drug binge and long period away from boxing. But that's going into a side topic, and credit to Usyk for beating the version of Fury in front of him. Joseph Parker is entering his prime period, and that simultaneously coincides with the fact that Usyk is now tailing off. Usyk will now begin to slow down. He's not going to get any better. For him, it's about preservation. His speed and being able to utilize his footwork in the ring, it's about preserving what's currently there. There's not more to come. It's about not slowing down from his perspective. So, against Joseph Parker, he won't enjoy the normal speed advantage he does, because remember, outside of perhaps Andy Ruiz, for example, Joseph Parker is, in this era, the second, if not fastest, of the top heavyweights. That's been his reputation, even in advance of the recent resurgence in form, where he teamed up with Andy Lee as well, and his body weight changed in that respect too. He's now bulkier and heavier. So, from a speed perspective, Parker will be a lot faster than the likes of Fury and AJ, certainly from a one-punch perspective, darting in and out, and he's now entering his prime period at the same time Usyk's dipping out of his. In the case of AJ, Usyk was very much still in his prime when he fought him. Against Tyson Fury, still in that prime period, not necessarily the peak, so to speak, but still in his prime. Whereas when Parker faces him, Usyk will be 38. When Usyk was 34, 35, 36, he was still in his prime period. Now, it's less likely in that respect. And when you compound that with the fact that a massive part of Usyk's success in this heavyweight division has been the fact that he has enjoyed a massive speed advantage over his opponent, and that's enabled him to exhaust the full vocabulary of his boxing skill set to the highest degree possible. It would have been still doable had he had a similar sort of speed to his opponents at heavyweight, but if he's got a significant speed advantage over the likes of AJ or against the likes of Derek Chisora, it ultimately makes his skills more potent. Now, it's worth noting that Joseph Parker also had elbow surgery. And since then, it's not necessarily a given that his speed is what it was once upon a time. And so, regarding the speed element, Parker's also bulked up in frame. He's also changed style. He's not the fast in and out sniper sort of fighter he was fighting Hughie Fury or against Anthony Joshua, 2018, 2017 time. And so from that perspective, Joseph Parker may not necessarily have closed the speed gap that much That version of Parker versus this version of Usyk, absolutely. You could argue Parker was also quicker, not necessarily just closing the gap, Parker being the faster puncher out of the two. But this version of Parker with added bulk and a different style, that could pose Usyk issues more so as an overall package than anyone in the heavyweight division. Now, when you combine all those factors together, the narrowing speed gap, he's a smaller heavyweight like Usyk, so the awkwardness of dimensions isn't quite as big as it could be for the likes of AJ and Fury, for example, when they face a smaller man in Usyk. And the fact that Parker's in his prime period, when you look at all the other heavyweights in the top 10, Daniel Dubois, Martin Bakole, they're either big men or they're past their primes or they're yet to prime, or there's something there in that respect. Ajit Kabayel is an interesting one, but Kabayel's speed isn't... Kabayel isn't able to close the speed gap on Usyk as much as Joseph Parker in that respect. Kabayel is a smaller heavyweight and in his prime. So he satisfies the criteria from that perspective, but you could argue he also leaves himself wide open. He, at times, left both sides of his guard open, lunging in with huge shots against Zhang, and he was knocked down as a result. But equally, so was Joseph Parker. He was knocked down by Zhang. And his guard wasn't particularly open in that respect. It just took a split second where Zhang saw a tiny avenue where he could thread a needle and Parker was on the floor. It's also worth noting that Parker's beating guys recently who were the three most feared punchers in this division. And in the case of the latter two, literally the bogeymen of the division at the time. Martin Bakole, Zhilei Zhang, Deontay Wilder. They're all power punchers. Usyk is not. So Parker's success against power punchers who've got their weight under them at all times, they've got flat feet and they're ready to detonate at a split second's notice, at a millisecond's notice. That's why they're perennially flat-footed. Oleksandr Usyk, howbeit, is the opposite. He's very rarely flat-footed. But equally, Usyk and Parker share one commonality. If that's a word. Commonality. Parker and Usyk's styles have actually evolved in the same direction. They hold their feet more now. They don't box on the outside as much as they used to. Parker was marching down Deontay Wilder at times. Usyk was marching down Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury at times. More so Tyson Fury. So while they are speedy, counter-elusive punchers, more so Usyk in that respect, on their countering side. But while they are, in this division, the smaller speedsters, they've been holding their feet a lot more as of late. And that from a style or an evolution stance is really interesting because this version of Parker facing Usyk, who's actually evolving in the same direction, just with a slightly different stance to it, in that Parker holds his feet more and gets behind the throwaway hook. That's his main form of offense. It builds everything from there. The Kronk style, so to speak. Usyk circles with that lead hand, that waving wand to distract and either set as a decoy to the backhand or feint and manipulate range to set something up with the lead hand. So, all in all, plenty to consider there that we've dissected and broken down. From a footwork perspective, Ajit Kabayel and Joseph Parker are relatively evenly placed in that respect. Parker is a bit more polished and refined in his defense, which is why I felt that, given that the comparison had been made anyway, the WBO have ordered now for Usyk and Parker to be fought for that belt, as that's what's essentially been ordered as the mandatory. Kabayel is also a consideration, but the reason I made the video about Parker specifically and dissecting the pros and cons was that's the matchup that's literally been ordered. So those are my thoughts, and we can discuss below, and curious to hear what you guys have to say as well. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions that you'd like me to answer for you in future videos or the extended breakdowns, just tweet them over to me. That's at ElusiveRaf on Twitter. If you guys want to see my daily fight analysis uploads, I upload those every day to Instagram, and that's at Elusive 2.0 on Instagram.